Hey there, this is Dan. You're watching the Salty Sea, and today I'm going to do a quick little high-speed skirmish, hopefully it's quick, between KBZ, Kruleboyz, and Kharadron Overlords. I wanted to do this because in the kind of new-ish edition since the MetaWatch, since my poor Nurgle got kicked to the curb, I haven't really found a warband that I both really like and think is pretty good. I've messed around with Lumineth a little bit. I've messed around with Khorne a little bit, but haven't really found something that I'm like really attached to and would want to take to a sort of important tournament. And so one of the ways that I kind of like to do that is take warbands that I think might be good or might be bad and run them against each other to kind of understand how they play a little better. And so I want to kind of bring the viewer along for the ride here. So I've got a couple builds of KO and Kruleboyz that I want to try out. And let's just take a quick look at the warbands right away. Kruleboyz warband with a Bolt Boy boss and a Gut Lord. I've got a few proxies in here. Prog is here for Shank. I own a Shank, but I haven't built him yet. A Drummer for Hobgrots is here for a Stab Grot. Couldn't find my Stab Grot. I've got a Maneater sculpt here instead of the Gut Lord. I don't like the Gut Lord sculpt, and I like the Maneaters quite a bit, but Maneater in Warcry is a ranged model, and this is the one Maneater without a gun. Now here's my KO, a kind of odd paint job. I don't usually like to do these sort of weird concept things, but a little bit of a sunset paint job on the KO, and then just 2 Stormcast. My Quester Soulsworn is not quite fully painted yet. So here are the exact details on the lists. The Kharadron Overlords have a Mizzen Master, an Anti-Prime, and a Quester Grandhammer. There are blessings on both of the 2 Stormcasts there so that they can hit in a pretty scary way. Then just 6 Arcanauts to run around with. I tried it once with a no blessing on the Quester Grandhammer, and then 5 Arcanauts and 1 Spear Arcanaut. The problem I found was that people who could get some offense going into the Arcanauts could always choose the spear one first. So your first spear is not that great because your opponent will target it first. It's really like your second and third spear that are pretty good. So I just kind of stuck with regular Arcanauts. The Kruleboyz, I wanted to try the Bolt Boy boss, and I think that Gut Lords are insane right now, so I felt like I needed to see a list run with a Gut Lord. Then Herc the Howler, the Gutrippa Musician was standing in for Herc the Howler. I refuse to play regular Herc because it's a purely better model brought in from Underworlds. It's a pure money grab. I don't like it. Shank, Rotgut Troggoth, 2 Gutrippas, and a Stab Grot. As you could tell from that video, there are a few proxies in here, but they're all somewhat similar sized. Well, they're all the same size as what they're proxying for, but similar vibe at least. The battle we're going to do is Slay and Scatter. This is from my title pack, where your shields are kind of right in each other's faces. Your daggers are all off in the corner, desperately hoping that they can make a difference in the first round. Then you're going to get a bunch of points every time you kill something, especially if you kill it in melee. And there are some objectives, but unlike most objective missions where most of the points come from the objectives and there's maybe some killing for tie-breaking, most of the points come from killing here, and then the objectives kind of come in at the end, right? It's also, the objectives are sort of a catch-up mechanic, if you will, and so you can kind of mess around with that. Some games there won't be very many objectives on the board. Some games you'll end with 4. So it can go kind of a few different ways. Let's take a look at how deployments shook out. So we started with the Mizzen Master in the center here with 2 Arcanauts, and there's the center objective. Then we've got a Rotgut Troggoth and Herc the Howler in the center there, kind of in each other's faces. Kruleboyz are just going to have 3 Arcanauts come in round 2. The Gut Lord is waiting in the corner, trying to get it there as fast as he can, along with Shank, Prog as Shank, and the Stab Grot. Then we've got the Stormcast and the Arcanaut hanging out in the corner. Overall, I thought the Mizzen Master in the corner would make this game a little bit too lopsided. The center right away. So I didn't set things up that way, but there are somewhat unbalanced deployments that that are kind of here because I'm basing it as if you were going to my Shipwreck Celebration tournament, which will have this as one of the games. Round 1, we have the shields kind of painting the edge of the objective there. The Trog trying to body block the Stormcast from being able to get onto it later in future turns. And then we have, the Gutlord and the Annie Prime trying their best to get as close as they possibly can, with the 2 Grots kind of right behind him. So hopefully they'll be able to contribute in round 1. But being able to do really well in this mission does seem to have whether or not your daggers can get to the center in round 1 as being pretty influential. And both of them had pretty slow trundlers. So at the end of round 1, that's KO up 1-0. Both teams essentially just using their abilities to get their hammer models like as close to the center as possible. It's a pretty kind of low-key way to start the game. There was a bit of kind of playing cagey with positioning as far as Trog trying to be a body blocker, trying to prevent a pot shot from coming in at Herc. Herc is so good in team fights in terms of being able to give that +1 damage buff, especially, the Troggoth benefits from it hugely. The Gutlord benefits from it hugely. And so trying to keep Herc alive became a priority once an Arcanaut got a lucky crit. And so that's kind of why the Trog played so aggressively, but it's positive as well to try to keep that Stormcast off the center. Let's take a look at the deployment and then how round 2 went. Along with the dice that each team got to use, so 2 doubles, and that's for Kruleboyz, and then a Rampage and a double for KO. But both kind of coming in pretty close to the center objective here. Look near the end of round 2 of the Annie using that Rampage to move and then Rampage, and then being able to, whether it's Rampage or Force of a Falling Star, taking out the Stab Grot and then also using an attack to take out Herc. Here is the end of round 2. There's a big team fight down at the bottom here with the Mizzen Master and the Stormcast taking on 2 Gut Rippas, the Troggoth coming in to join the battle. The Bolt Boy boss was the victim of 1 Mizzen Master attack, but then disengaged out. The Annihilator has shown up to stare the Gutlord down in the face, but there is a Arcanaut trying to kind of hold him down so that he can't just attack right away. So there were kind of some interesting decisions in round 2 there. You could see how the Mizzen Master was in a completely different part of the board, for example, by the end of round 2 than it was at the beginning. There's sort of a few different questions. So I wanted to kind of run them down a little bit. One was whether or not to make an objective. The idea that I was thinking in my head is if you're Kruleboyz, you have 2 fewer fighters, and you're noticing that KO are kind of just as capable of killing your fighters as you are theirs, because you do have a few little grots running around. And so I thought giving up the numbers advantage by having more objectives when the Gutlord could just dominate the center of the board meant that I wanted there to only be 1 objective. But I don't know if that was correct, really, because I wonder if maybe you just decide that KO can't catch you. And in the way that this shaked out, if you had put an objective down, you would have won it 3-4 if you were the Kruleboyz player. You can never completely make it by make your decisions by hindsight like that, but it is interesting to think about. So then also, Kruleboyz won initiative, and there was a very difficult decision. So one, you can either, with initiative, you can try to use your Bolt Boy boss to try to snipe the Arcanaut, blocking the Gutlord from running into the objective. That Gutlord was kind of blocked by Herc on one side, and then a Arcanaut ran in on the other so that it couldn't slalom its way into the objective area. So if your Bolt Boy boss manages to take out the Arcanaut in 2 attacks using aim, then that's a really nice spot because your Gutlord can run in. But then KO gets to respond by having the Mizzen Master, if he manages to kill Herc in 1 shot, which Herc had taken quite a bit of damage at that point. I think Herc had taken 7 damage at that point. And So if the Mizzen Master takes out Herc, then it gets to get away without any kind of other issues, and that's a real nightmare of a situation for you, because then you basically lose Herc for nothing on an action that you could have done with your Bolt Boy boss anyway. The other option is kind of to disengage Herc and then move back onto the objective, but out of 1-inch range of the Mizzen Master. Then the Mizzen Master has to get out of dodge, or else the Gutlord just comes and kills it. And so then it has to decide either take out the Stab Grot or just run in and fight the Bolt Boy boss, just to stay out of the Gutlord's way. I chose this option because all of the good things that can happen in round 1 are kind of based on the Bolt Boy boss taking out and dealing 11 damage to an Arco, and I don't think the odds are good enough for that to be super comfortable. So I had Kruleboyz disengage Herc out of there. I've also just kind of been valuing Herc's life just in general, because I wonder if that triple is good and I want to see it. So that's kind of what I decided to do, which meant that the Mizzen Master ran over to go fight the Bolt Boy boss, to kind of be in a spot where the Gutlord couldn't come take it, but ended up being cornered by the Troggoth anyway. So that kind of happened. The Annie, though, bagged a huge lead in the game by running up and killing the minions. That was a bit of a decision as well. You could also argue to run up and put 2 attacks into the Gutlord, which would be interesting, because then if you win initiative next round, you basically win the game on the spot, because then the Annie gets to kill the Gutlord, and that's crazy, right? But if you lose initiative next round, you take a game you were leading and you maybe punt it away, which is always a terrible space to be, which is why I had it go attack the minions. So let's take a look at how round 3 shaped up. So round 3 was a bit of a bloodbath. The Mizzen Master was able to disengage out between the Troggoth to then kill the Bolt Boy boss and get to safety using a rampage. The Gutlord won initiative and basically swept the floor with all of the little Arcanaut and the Annie. You see there, though, one Arcanaut getting to the center objective, meaning it's still tied, which means that because KO took it last time, they get to keep it. So that round was a bit of a bloodbath. 2 Arcos went down, 1 Annihilator Prime went down, 1 Bolt Boy boss went down, and 1 Gut Ripper went down. Kind of interesting the way it happened, though. The Gutlord was actually only 45% likely to be able to kill both. You're 72% to kill the Arco, and then 63% to kill the Annie in 2 attempts, because you get to use Might Makes Right, but you've got to dodge that slightly more than 1 in 4 chance that you won't one-shot kill the Arco, and then you still got a 1 in 3 chance of failure against the Annie. So actually pretty lucky to be able to kill both, because if you fail there, you just straight up lose the game, which is pretty wild. Then there's the Bolt Boy boss, which pretty incredible that the Mizzen Master was able to kind of disengage out and then rampage and then get to safety, but that happens. Potentially could have, in the previous round, disengaged to trap the Mizzen Master better, but that happened pretty early in the round because the Bolt Boy boss had to disengage immediately after taking damage from the Mizzen Master, because the Stormcast was fully capable of just coming over and killing it, which would have been terrible. So you have to disengage not knowing how the rest of the round is going to play out. So hard to go really hindsight on that one. There was a bit of a comedy of errors down in the lower battle. The Troggoth completely whiffed trying to hit the Quester. The Troggoth's odds of taking out the Quester were basically 0 anyway, but still, looking for 4 is only dealing 3 damage. It's pretty disappointing. But then the Quester completely whiffed trying to take out the Gut Ripper, which only had 5 health left anyway. So looking for 3s, your odds of taking it out using 5 dice, which is wild. Looking for 3s, only dealing 3 is like an astronomically small number or chance of that happening, to not deal 5 to it, which really kind of bails out KBZ a lot here. This round could have essentially just ended the game in favor of KO, and instead Kruleboyz, not only do they keep pace, but in terms of numbers, they actually close the numbers gap, which is really great for them. It does make me wonder if, again, if placing an objective earlier would have been the correct decision, but the odds of that quester completely whiffing were just so low that I'm just not sure if this is a hindsight 2020 thing or not. But let's take a look at how the fourth round played out. You do see there is a second objective there, but most of the action is trying to get onto that first one. Because they were going to lose no matter what, the Gut Lord had to kill 2 Arcos just to score enough points, because winning the objective isn't worth enough points. But that did draw it off and allow the Stormcast to then disengage to kind of get to safety. Stormcast and didn't manage it. Shank also died because you can't only have 6 wounds and hang out near a Mizzen Master and expect to live. That's just a rule. So Kruleboyz finally puts down an objective and does score on it, gets 2 points. This round was kind of decided by rampages. So once again, Kruleboyz won initiative. I think they won initiative either all 4 rounds in this game or 3 out of the 4 rounds. But once again, Kruleboyz wins initiative, kind of has to do something with the Gut Lord, because if it doesn't manage to at least kill 2 things when you start the round down 4, it's kind of a nightmare, right? Because otherwise the Mizzen Master or the whatever the other one is, either way, the Stormcast, the Quester Soulsworn, either the Mizzen Master or the Quester Soulsworn is going to be able to rampage, kill some stuff, and then take one of the 2 objectives, because either they come down and take the low objective, killing a Gut Rippa, or they just kill Shank, get onto terrain, and then take the high objective. So the Gut Lord has to go kind of first to kill the 2 Arcanauts, otherwise the Arcanauts will just back away. So an awkward situation, but you do get a lot of kills. You get 4 points for those 2 kills. And then the Mizzen Master only gets 2 points for killing Shank, because the 3rd point is for killing killing leaders, and so unique models don't count for that. The final dice roll of the game, though, even after all that, after all these things kind of going Kruleboyz' way, the final dice roll still came down to if the Troggoth could deal 12 with move plus onslaught against the Quester, it actually still would have won the game for Kruleboyz, because it would have scored 3 points. Unfortunately, that, sometimes when you're behind in a game, the game can still come down to 1 dice roll, but then it becomes a dice roll that you are just heavily unfavored in, and that's kind of what this was. So the Troggoth only had a 19% chance to take out the Quester there. The average damage is 8, looking for 12, ended up dealing 6. That happened, so KO ends up winning this one 17-15. I am kind of interested if I made a few play mistakes in this one. I kind of have played a lot less this summer. I took a month off in June, and then I essentially took a month off in late July and August too. And so I've been playing a lot worse lately, just in general, I've noticed. So should Kruleboyz have placed a second objective earlier? In retrospect, they clearly should have, but at the time it was much less clear, because if the Quester Soulsworn doesn't just whiff all over the place, that's a really dangerous place to be for Kruleboyz, because being able to roll 5 dice, always hitting on 3s against every single thing that is over there, and dealing 3 on every hit, there was a real chance that Soulsworn would just machine gun its way through every single thing that was down in that part of the board. And so if you do that, it gets really embarrassing if you place another objective. So kind of difficult to decide, but in retrospect, it was clear that Kruleboyz should have done that they should have put another objective down. I also, I meant to do sort of best of 3 here, but I don't think I'd want to run this Kruleboyz list against this KO list again, mostly because I do think Bolt Boy Boss can maybe be good, but it wasn't good here, and I don't think it could be good against a Mizzen Master. Mizzen Masters are just uniquely a nightmare for Bolt Boy Bosses. 250 points against 170, that's not the worst exchange if a 250-point fighter kills your 170-point fighter, but the thing about Mizzen Masters is they're so fragile, but they do great damage. and they can run down anything. And so there's nowhere for the Bolt Boy boss to hide. There's no way to kind of take advantage of the kind of Mizzen Master's weaknesses there, right? So like if this had been, say, a different Kruleboyz list I've been thinking about with an Ardboy boss instead of the Trogoth and a Killa boss instead of the Bolt Boy boss, the Mizzen Master would have had nowhere to really go. It would have been able to kind of hunt down the little, could have hunted down Gut Rippas. It could have hunted down like little grots and stuff, but it wouldn't have been able to like go hero hunting and go like scoring huge points that way. And it just would have been a much less effective piece. So I'm not sure I'd want to run this matchup again. I also don't know, because this mission should have really favored Kruleboyz. This is absolutely a stompy mission where, you know, the more kills you get, the better. It's sort of weighted much more towards killing than towards anything else. But KO still won, and part of that was that KO just had a million rampages. When your opponent gets 3 rampages and you get 1, it can be really hard to win. I think in general in Warcry, if your opponent gets 1 more rampage than you, that's mostly fine. It's still very, very winnable. But when your opponent has 2 more rampages than you over the course of a game, that can be a lot. Now, it's impossible to really say for sure because, for example, Kruleboyz had much better attack dice in this game. The Gutlord basically never missed the entire game, and if you can have one of your fighters never miss, you want it to be your Gutlord. A Gutlord, even with +1 attack, has a 72% chance of killing an Arcanaut, but it attacked 4 Arcanauts and killed 4 Arcanauts in just 4 attacks, right? It never whiffed once. It had a 63% chance of 2-shotting an Anti-Prime. It succeeded that. Now, all of these, it was favored to succeed, but your odds of never failing once in those 5 things that you try to kill are like incredibly low. And so the Gutlord was like, even though it was favored every time, it was incredibly lucky to succeed every time. So it's kind of hard to say, you know, if I really cared about analyzing exactly which warband is better, I would want to do a best of 3 here. But I just think this is, if my goal was to find out if Bolt Boy bosses are good, which was part of my goal here, I will just never find out with this matchup because the Mizzen Master is just so perfect for ruining a Bolt Boy boss's day. And so I think I'll just keep it pushing. I'm going to kind of play this Survivor style. I'll have a few more battle reports coming throughout the fall. I'm going to pick a Vexmore list now to play against these KO. And if the Chaos list wins, you know, I can maybe bring out the Bolt Boy boss again. I'll just keep having the winner of each of these battle reports fight something else later. But if there's more Mizzen Masters in the future, next time I try Kruleboyz, I'll probably do it with a Killa boss because I just think matchup-wise, the Mizzen Master is just so brutal on any of these kind of little fragile, little shooty pieces. So those are kind of my thoughts there. If you do want to try any of these warbands out, here are the 2 lists. If you do play them, may all your rolls be crits. I do actually think that the Kruleboyz list is better, but KO won this time on a mission that Kruleboyz should be favored on, so I'm not sure. Maybe KO is actually better. I'll keep playing them in battle reports, and you'll be able to find out.